bit about logical fallacies as we start our argument unit. So, just in full transparency, these slides are based on my notes, but the images are AI generated because I just wanted it to be pretty and fit a color scheme. Okay. And so when we think about logical fallacies are mistakes in arguments that usually come from a person exaggerating or understating or just making a logic an error after a piece of evidence. We want to avoid these because as writers, they often make our writing weak. The first kind you have seen a lot is called ad hominem, which is Latin for at the man, right? So when we attack a person making an argument rather than looking at the merits of their argument itself. You'll see it a lot in political conversations, especially in 2025, but genuinely always in political conversations. And so one thing we can do is we can evaluate who creates the argument and if they are an expert, but instead of attacking their personal decisions or choices or who they are out in the world, looking at the evidence they provide is really how we will show if the argument is strong or not strong. Okay? False dichotomy or black and white thinking is when we give two choices and only two choices for a solution. Often that happens, especially in scientific writing. We can only do A or B. And often the combination of things tends to be a better fit, right? Especially because there's usually many alternatives for anything in a world with nearly 8 billion people, right? We have to completely ban social media or students won't learn. Those two side by side are not the only two options. And so if you can't show more than one opinion, if you can't show more than two opinions, I'm going to ask you, is this a false dichotomy? In our first argument essay, I'm going to ask you to show more than one option to solve the problem, and hopefully you'll be able to do that. Hasty generalizations, that's pretty straightforward. This fallacy is when we draw a conclusion about the whole entire world based on a small group. Right. And so if 10 people have experienced something in a world with almost 8 billion people, right, then probably we're being a little too hasty. So my roommate's from California and they love surfing. All Californians must love surfing. We know the truth is there's some Californians who've never been to the beach in their whole life, right? We want to make sure we have a large enough sample of people who have responded to our question in order to make some sort of an argument. This can be a little bit tricky because in college, you can't possibly know everything about everyone in the world, but we can make efforts to show that we have tried to understand more than one worldview. We've tried to pull more than one group. Just because it happened to you or your aunt or your uncle doesn't mean everyone has experienced it. Okay, appeal to authority is actually a fallacy. And I know a lot of people say, well, an expert said this. Right? But the fallacy is that just because someone has power doesn't make them right. Right? So a physicist might not necessarily understand why a diet is healthy. And so we need to know if they actually have background in the thing you want to know about. Always look for supporting evidence and reasoning. We need facts after the name. Those go hand in hand for ethos, which we learned last unit. Slippery slope, you've done this before. Someone said if you don't do your homework, you'll drop out of school. If you drop out of school, you won't have a future. If you don't have a future, you can't have a life and you're going to end up sad and alone somewhere, right? And so it's a small step that creates an extreme outcome. If we let you use AI once, your brain will turn to cheese. We know that's not true, right? It is just like anything else. It's like a calculator. It's like a spell checker. We need to use it responsibly, but also use our brains. So slippery slope means big things will happen based on a very small event. The post hoc fallacy is probably the one you know the best. Post hoc means after. And so we look backwards at events and say this happened and that happened, so it must have caused it. I wore my lucky jersey to the football game and my team won. My jersey made them win, right? I ate too many cookies, right? And now I have norovirus. The cookies gave me norovirus when maybe it was actually just someone next to you was sick. Look for actual causal relationships and be skeptical if somebody says something caused something else. We need to have real details and examples of how we know something caused something else. So here are my tips for you as you write in this unit. Think critically. Try to show more than one worldview. Get evidence from more than one source. So we're going to start having 2 sources in paragraphs. We're going to talk about counter arguments this unit and precise language. I really encourage you to use the writing center this unit and get feedback, because sometimes we don't see our own bias and we don't see our own fallacies. This is where we usually see them, in our thesis statement or in our topic sentences, when we see everyone in the world experiences something or this causes that. When we think about the supporting evidence that holds us up, we want to check there as well, right? Did you notice this is basically the whole essay? Yeah, no, it's because it happens everywhere, and that's why we have to be really mindful of it, okay? It does make your argument weaker, and it makes other people's arguments weaker, and it lowers that ethos, which we learned about last time in our last unit. It can be confusing when we have fallacies or gaps in logic, and it might make your grades lower, so we want to be careful about that too. Thanks for listening. I hope you pass the quiz.